When you think of historic sites around Tennessee, old homes or maybe battlefields come to mind. Not a place like Miss Annie's down in St. Joseph near the Alabama state line. But as Rob Wiles discovered, this place is not only known for good food, music, and of course beer, it also holds a unique, colorful place in Tennessee history.
The Ritz.
Miss Annie's is a family kind of place with fine food for every taste. But the place hasn't always had such a family-friendly reputation, particularly back in the day when there was an actual Miss Annie on the premises, a time current owner Michael Robertson remembers well.
Miss Annie Evers named this thing Rustic Park years ago. But most of the older people that I knew, my dad and a lot of the people that came here, they called it Miss Annie's or Ain't Annie's. My dad and them called it Ain't Annie's. I mean, I was like about 10, 12-year-old before I realized she really wasn't no kin to us.
Miss Annie opened the place as an open-air dance hall.
Front part of this thing up here was built in 1928, and it was built for a dance hall.
Uh-huh.
And in 1931, the people, I guess, got complaining about it. They had it closed up.
Now, I wouldn't want to say Miss Annie or any of the fine folks who came to visit her back in the 20s and 30s broke any prohibition laws, but when Michael remodeled, he found some evidence that the law wasn't, well, shall we say, strictly enforced.
I don't know where they got it, but the foundation that when we started moving it for the road, there wasn't no shortage of beer at that time. I don't know if you could sell it or not, because there was an awful lot of bottles in that foundation, and they poured that concrete, you know.
It came from somewhere.
It came from somewhere, yeah.
Uh-huh.
After that dark cloud of prohibition passed over, Miss Annie's reopened and made its mark on the state's history.
This was the very first beer garden that was licensed in the state of Tennessee in 1933.
These days, the flavor of the old-time beer garden is still there, with music, food and drinks out in the garden, and maybe even a commercial or two.
Braille cream, a little dab will do ya. Use more, only if you dare. Watch out, the gals will all pursue ya. They love to get their fingers in your hair. They love to get their fingers in your hair.
Michael Robertson made sure it was all here when he had to move Miss Annie's. Yep, moved it back from the road when it was widened. People told Mike he was nuts to move and remodel the old place, but he's a sentimental guy.
Well, I was advised by several people that that's what I should do, you know. I'd be better off. But I just hated to see the old building torn down. You know, it'd been here for all them years, and the people in the community seemed to want it kept here, and she still got a lot of relatives and stuff that lives here.
Here's one of Miss Annie's kinfolks now, Hattie Evers, Miss Annie's niece. She worked here and remembers her aunt very well for the strong woman she was.
I lived about a little more than a mile from here. Because I walked out here then, because back then we didn't have no cars, and nobody else had much had it either. Of course, then I just come every morning work and go home at night. And she stayed here by herself.
Even in the days Miss Annie lived here by herself, there was hardly ever any trouble here, and now the place is a full-fledged family restaurant, suitable for everybody. Now, old ideas die hard, but they are dying. Take Cheryl Jackson and her mom, for instance.
Well, she's 83 years old now, but like 60 years ago, when she was a teenager, her daddy told her that she couldn't come to Miss Annie's because it was a dance hall and a bar, and she would get the worst whipping of her life if she came. So 60 years later, it's a family restaurant, very family friendly. We try to get Mom to come. No, she was still minding her daddy. But 3 weeks ago, we brought her to Miss Annie's for lunch after church. She loved it.
Really?
Yes.
She didn't get a whipping or anything?
No, so she rebelled after 60 years and came to Miss Annie's dance hall.
Which I'm sure would make Miss Annie smile, just as you will when you visit her place yourself, Miss Annie's in St. Joseph.